It's not just radio, it's Rockland World Radio. RocklandWorldRadio.com.
This is our debut show, and joining me today is my co-host Teresa Winicki of Dynamic Evolution, and I am Lisa Howard, the founder of thisorbetter.com. We are very excited to have you here tonight. We're also a little bit nervous, so bear with us, and you might get a few good laughs as well as a lot of inspiration. It's our hope that you do so. So again, join me in welcoming Teresa Winicki of Dynamic Evolution. Teresa is a co-facilitator as well as a co-host on the show. She and I co-host and facilitate our REACH workshops, and we are currently in week 3 of our 10-week program. And so we're hoping that this show not only is a platform for people looking to advance in personal growth, be it whether they are seeking a coach for themselves or, in fact, they are a personal growth contemporary looking to expand their business and show up in this world and offer and share what they contribute. So with that, I'll turn this over to Teresa, and Teresa can tell you a little bit about herself. And for now, bear with us on this debut as we get familiar with this whole process. We are living our dream right now. This show is a demonstration of our vision, and we would like to see this platform really take off and inspire all of our viewers, anyone looking to live a life of their dreams, whether that's in a corporate America position or leaving corporate America and creating your own business. Teresa and I are here to answer questions, engage in what we call divine dialogue, and share with you, based on our experience, our education, and our expertise, ways on how you can make those changes in your life and take the next step. And as Martin Luther King said, you don't have to take the whole staircase, you just have to take one step. And perhaps that one step for you tonight is watching this show. So I hope that you will enjoy, sit back, and about 7:30 there'll be a call-in segment, and you can call in and ask us any questions pertaining to the show, of course. And that's it.
So what Lisa and I both love to help people do is we really help people to collapse time in reaching their dreams, attaining their goals, living the life that they know deep inside they would really love to be living. Because when we get to the end of the road, and one of my mentors once asked me this question, and I think it's really how I got into this line of work. She asked me the question, when you put your head down for the very last time, and you will, what would it have been that you would have wanted your life to be? And so when you take on questions, because questions I think really help us catapult into another level of our life, when we really entertain questions. And a question like that had me stop and really think. So what I wanted to do was really be fully expressed. I knew that I wanted to do more and be more than I was currently living in my life. And so those questions are what I help people do as a life mastery coach. I really help people start to blueprint their life. What is it? What's the design that they would really love to have their life look like all the time? And not only just start blueprinting it, but really then bridging the gap. Because the only thing that's different about us and the people who are attaining the results that they want in their life, one is the thinking that it takes to actually achieve that result that they want in their life. But the first thing that we have to do is always define what that end result is that we want to get. And each and every day, we just become more aware and more aware of what it is that we really want to do and to be and to have in our life. And it's like when you take that first step, the next step will always appear if you're consciously aware of what you're building, what you want to become in your life. And you can have whatever you're willing to become. So on this journey that we are so fortunate to have met each other,
Right.
Not that long ago. When did we met?
A little over, almost 2 years.
Is it 2 years ago?
It's almost 2 years.
So where we met, and we really we're inspired by each other, one, and two,
Absolutely.
and two, I think we balance each other so well. We really, we bring opposite ends to the spectrum, but truly what we love to do is help people catapult into the next evolution of who they really are.
Right. Right. So that would be our drug. Inspiring you would be ours.
Well, we
So
get hooked on.
I want to offer a little background, a little personal background. I'm recently a newly licensed science of mind practitioner, and 6 years ago, that was the last thing on my mind. I was looking for a little peace of mind, and I wanted to put the dots that appeared in my life. I wanted to piece them together and make sense out of what seemed like a chaotic life. And so I had a lot of experiences. Some were hurtful, some were joyful, all of which have been tremendously meaningful in the grand scheme of things. And when you look back, you can see how all of the dots connect. It's almost impossible to put those dots into place when you're looking forward. But I offer that simply because I would like our viewers to be really comfortable and understand that Teresa and I have not only walked our talk, we are walking our walk, and we continue to do this, and it's the experiences that we're learning along the way. It's not just the education and the expertise that we have gathered up to this point, but it's our everyday lives. Teresa is a wife and a mother. I am a mother and a grandmother. We're both business women. We occupy full-time jobs, and we keep life going together, and really this divine dialogue occurs on the spot. Whether I'm on the Cross Bronx and something incredible happens that might seem very minute to someone else, it's significant to me because I'm very much awake and aware of what's taking place on this journey. And I think that can be said for most of the world today. The news media has played a huge role in the current energy of collective consciousness and not being what the society at large thinks. And so we're surrounded by a lot of anxiety around economic conditions and how the youth of America today are different from how they were when we were kids, which is only par for the course. But for some reason, through all of the angst of living today and trying to make sense out of life when it seems it's most challenging, it's venues like this that you can deliberately choose to engage in. You can turn the news on and you can read about the murders and the fires and the horror stories, or you can deliberately dive into empowering thought and topics that allow this divine dialogue to take place in your life. But it doesn't happen when you're watching The Housewives or or the news or CSI for that matter. It happens when you take time out, you take a breath, you take a step back, and you start taking stock of your life and the experiences just on a day-to-day. You don't even have to take the whole picture of your life. If you just worked from right where you are right now, if this is your first time even engaging in this kind of conversation, you can start right now. You can mark your calendar and you can say that as of 11/4, watching Teresa Winicky and Lisa Howard on Divine Dialogue, that I started to ask myself some serious questions about who I am, how I'm showing up in this world, and how I want to show up. And you do that literally right where you are right now, by engaging in some very key questions about who you want to be. So with that, I'm going to turn that over to you, and you can tell us who you want to be.
So
I know who you are and who you want to be, but they want to know now.
Well, currently, my corporate name is Dynamic Evolution. And it was a name chosen very specifically because if we don't evolve, the world won't evolve. And I think that really is in what I really help people to do, not only evolve in our thinking, evolving in who we want to interact with, who we want to be in this world. We can't ever get to a place unless we really define and declare where it is we want to go, who it is we want to be, how we want to live our life. And if we do it unconsciously, it'll look exactly like your parents, or look exactly like a sibling. It'll look exactly like somebody that you grew up with. And what we don't want to do is get to the end of the road and say, wait a minute, I didn't really choose that life. It was just kind of ingrained in me. It was a model that someone taught me. It might have been their best thinking at the time. They raised me, my parents raised me with their best thinking, or the teachers I had, or the coaches I had, or whoever it was that we spent a lot of time with. If we don't consciously choose who it is we want to be in this world, we may just end up looking like somebody else's model of what their best thinking was, as opposed to really declaring, I have a special gift and talent, and I really would love to use that in every day of my life. I don't want to just have it as a hobby, but I want to actually express it every single day of my life. So, I work with people who, I worked with one person who was a human resource person, and he loved his job in the beginning, and then it kind of got boring. And what he really, really, really wanted to do was to help people really live healthy, nurtured, exciting lives and dynamic lives. And working with him, he actually decided that he would do that. Quit his job, moved to Florida, and he really just took on being this person. But he didn't know he wanted to do that until we actually had the conversation. I asked him the question, what would you love? And when I ask people that question, most of them say, nobody's asked me that ever.
Right.
Or I haven't thought of that in a really long time. Because
well, let's face it, we weren't encouraged to do what we love. We were encouraged to do what pays the bills.
What pays the bills, absolutely. Right. So asking that question to people really takes them back, and it really conjures up an emotion, really from the past of what it is, if they're not living their dreams right now, if they're not working towards it or tasting it a little bit every single day, like the diet. That we talk about the diet, which we mean to be diving into empowering thinking. But if we live on a diet of empowering thinking, we can't get anywhere unless we know where we want to go. And then once we know where we want to go, then we can start using that empowering thinking to help get us there, build the awarenesses to take us down the road a little bit at a time. Because it's not that people, sometimes say, 80 years, if you live 80 years, 80 years, that's not really a long time. It's such a short time in the span of the world, such a short time. But really is what they mean when they get there, they say, is that they just started living too late in life. They figured it out late in life.
Right.
People get that awareness is after they've made the money, raised their children, gotten through the stressful thing. It was just getting good. And then they finally realize that it could be a lot less stressful, because you get to the end of the road and then you watch your kids grow. And then I know I'm not a grandparent, but you have a beautiful 2-year-old grandchild.
Right.
But you have a different perspective once you get to the other side of it, looking back and what you would love to tell your grandchild or, your child, how would you like to live it differently? It doesn't have to be the way exactly I did it.
Right.
What's your style? And when everybody brings their own style for the good of the world, great things happen. Great things will always happen when people bring their true selves into their daily lives.
Right.
And I'm sure you've worked with some people that have gone from a place of not knowing what or how to getting to the other side and really, their life just
myself, for starters. And it's probably a perfect time to describe, there's a lot of talk about spirituality today and religion. There's a lot of conflict in religion and dogma. And so there is this popular consensus that when you live a spiritual life, that you wear tie-dyed clothes, braid your hair and eat alfalfa sprouts. And yes, there's a large community that does. Not everyone who ventures into living a conscious spiritual life is from Woodstock. We are such a diverse group. Spirituality is such a broad term. And really what it means is it just means that it's consciously living with your eyes wide open, living from your heart and trying to really show up in the world rather than expecting, but bringing what it is you're expecting. And so that's my own little metaphor for spirituality. There's many definitions depending on which spiritual leader you're talking about. But
so could you give an example? So you maybe tell the people that are listening or watching what it is you do every day. In the context of being a spiritual being,
Well-
spiritual living. What do you do every day? Your regular work. What do you do? Your regular work in the world
My regular work in the world.
that pays the bills.
I'm a saleswoman. I've been a saleswoman for 29 years, and I work predominantly in the aerospace, both commercial and defense categories. And so I thoroughly enjoy what I do. Thoroughly enjoy what I do. I don't think I've enjoyed it half as much 10 years ago as I do now, but simply because I have learned, that used to be a very popular thing to put on your resume or have in an interview, and they said, well, why should I hire you? Oh, because I love people. Well, the truth is, no, I don't always love people. There's a lot of times when they're not acting in ways that I feel particularly warm and fuzzy. But in the past 10 years, to watch my own evolution, and I was juggling what I thought life was batting me balls, and I was hitting them the best I could. I had no direction. I was batting, but I had no direction. So with guidance and support and education, I personally went the science of mind route. And so I enrolled in religious science education. I have since become a religious science practitioner. My day is so much more than being a saleswoman and having relationships that I have cultivated for 29 years. I start my day in spiritual practice by meditating each morning. Sometimes I have more time to meditate than others. I read specific literature, largely metaphysical, or other empowering articles in magazines. For example, this is just a magazine, and this happens to be one from a local publication, Natural Awakenings. And I noticed it because of the ad on the cover today, Tools for Conscious Living. So eventually, when you're completely aware of the pursuit that you want to be in, the articles just show up, the literature just shows up, and you're just aware and you start engaging in it. So I call my job, it actually is a great tool for my spiritual journey because I travel every one of the Hudson crossings multiple times. And if I haven't choked or killed someone yet, I think that that's largely because of my spiritual practice. So it's interesting, and this is an opportunity to have fun. And at first it becomes something that's taken very, very seriously. But I am having fun doing what I'm doing. I've studied for a while, and I went through a lot of challenges in the study, and there were lots of times when I wanted to give up. But when I realize it now, when I look back and connect all those dots, like Mary Morrissey was talking about in D.C. a couple weeks ago, that you can only connect the dots when you look back. That makes so much sense to me now, because when I look back, I can see how all the dots connected. But I know that just didn't happen. That happened because I intended it to happen, and I took the steps necessary. I didn't just watch and listen and read. There's something in Science of Mind, we call it treat and move your feet. You still have to get up and pursue your goals and your dreams, but you do so with a support around you. You choose who it is you hang out with. You choose what you read. You choose what you watch on television. And you make a conscious effort to show up every day being the very thing you're looking to receive. So I think that it's important to note that we are living everyday normal lives. And, if you don't have fun with it, you could go crazy.
Absolutely.
I have a teenager, for God's sakes. That's enough. And she's not a teenager anymore, but see, I'm still stuck in that mindset.
You are still. I have two teenagers and one on the cusp, a 12-year-old, a 16-year-old, and a soon-to-be 19-year-old. And, it's brought challenges and a whole lot of blessings. It's brought challenges and many, many blessings. But they're blessings because I declare them as blessings. It hasn't been the easiest road to hoe. Several years ago, a good 10 years ago, how I got into this work and how I discovered empowering thinking and found mentors and found people who have been through things that I have been is I was having serious health issues. And I couldn't connect the dots back then of why I was having serious health issues until I ended up in the hospital, and I really thought, I went to the emergency room, and I really didn't think I was going to get out of the emergency room. It was a really bad experience of what my body was going through. And I started to question then, why is it? The doctor told me at that point, he goes, you're either going to have to be on heart medication for the rest of your life, or I can't help you. And at that moment when he told that to me, I just knew deep down inside, it wasn't my heart. There was nothing wrong with my heart. My heart was fine. The reason my body was responding the way it was responding, it just kept shutting off on me. At any moment, I never knew when it was going to shut down on me, and I would just pass out, and then my body would go into these hyperventilating. My body would heat up and shut down, heat up and cool down, and it went on for so long that nobody could tell me what was going on with me. The doctors couldn't tell me. Nobody could tell me what was going on. When the doctor finally said, you have to be on heart medication so we could regulate you, I just knew that wasn't the reason. I knew that wasn't the problem. So as I started to contemplate and really think about, well, what could that reason be? That what's going on in my life? And at that point in time, my husband had given me a gift. So, things come out of the blue. When you start to look for them, you start to become aware of the signs, the help that's around you when you didn't know before that. But only because I was looking for help did I find the help that I needed. And my husband had actually bought me, out of the blue, a copy of the audio of The Secret that had come out in 2006 or 2007. And
Right.
I started listening to it, except I couldn't get past her accent. And she kept saying the same thing over and over and over again. I just couldn't listen to it. I put it down. I don't think I picked that up for 6 more months. And I finally went out for a walk one day. I said, all right, I need to listen to something. Went out for the walk, and I finally started to get the message of what it was, like what she was really talking. What was the secret? And through that, we found a mentor, Bob Proctor, who was in there and who had been studying personal development for years. For 50 years, the man has been doing this for a very long time. And he had created the results in his life that I wanted. How to be more aware, how to be financially successful, how to have great relationships, how to do a lot of things that I had no idea how to get to. So we signed up to be in a year-long program with him. My husband and I, we were both on the same page. So I was very fortunate to have someone in my life to partner with me and
support you.
To support me in that. And so we signed up to do a year-long program for him, which meant that every week on the phone we had his attention, this man who was brilliant, to have his attention for an hour of our time, to be in there and ask questions. And I finally told him what was going on in my life. And I said, what happens? Does the event comes first, or does the thinking come first? Which creates which? Does the event create the thinking, or the thinking create the event in our life? What is it? And he said, well, of course it's your thinking. What have you been thinking up until now? And when I started to think what I was thinking about, I was a mother with 3 young children at home. My husband traveled a lot. He was never home. I mean, he was rarely home. He had one of those big executive jobs. The man was traveling to India, traveling to Europe, wherever he was traveling, he was never home. And as I connected the dots, I saw that every time I would have an episode of my body falling apart on me, it was the times where I was not asking for help. I was overwhelmed with my job, of someone who had been in the working world for corporate, on my own, traveling, doing a whole other world, and then being home with kids, moving to a new area, a new house, a new community, husband gone. I was feeling overwhelmed, and I didn't know how to ask for help because I thought, I can handle this. I'm Italian.
Right. Well, we just don't ask for help. We just do it.
I'm a woman. I've managed many, many people. I've handled a whole lot of things in my life. Why can't I handle this? And I just wasn't willing to ask for the help. And once I opened up to that divine dialogue that we're talking about tonight, I couldn't get an answer until I started asking the questions. And then all of a sudden I had all the support. I had all this help. I had someone showing me the direction of what to do next, how to think next, what was going wrong. And that just was the start of finding the mentors and the people to surround myself with, to aspire to read from, to not only learn from, but these great thinkers in the world who have so much knowledge and wisdom to share, just opening up the books and reading and designing where I wanted to go.
Right.
So while I blessed that time in my life because that's how I got to where I am now. It was a very tough time in my life. It was several years that it happened, but it was such a blessing. And all that I've learned now on my journey is what I really help other people do. I really, really help people define and declare and then catapult themselves into this life that they know deep inside there's so much more. There's just, people are out there living great lives, satisfying lives, big lives, whatever the life is that you want. I mean, it could be just, living in a monastery if you really wanted that, or it could be out doing in the world. So I really help people define what it is that's important to them, what their gifts and talents are. And it's such a satisfying journey. And I learn, as we were talking the other day, we learn from everybody that we're working with.
Right.
And we don't know everything, but we're on our journey to figure it out and
Right.
find the great stuff.
And I think if you asked either one of us, 10 years ago, if we thought we'd be doing this, no. I would have said no. But I was, when we had the ceremony at Centers for Spiritual Living in Morristown, for our licensing ceremony, each one of us was asked to give a short speech. And, aside from expressing our gratitude and our warmth and willingness that we felt from our community, I explained that, I came for a little peace of mind, and the next thing you know, I was in a workshop. And then,
Yes.
4 or 5 years later, I'm now being licensed. But that's because somewhere along that journey, when the lights truly came on, you feel a certain responsibility, not in a codependent way, but you feel a sense of responsibility because you're on to something and you want to share this with other people, because you realize that however challenging or difficult life has been up to that point, that it doesn't have to be. It becomes so much more pleasurable. It's easier. It can be very, very prosperous. And I kind of felt guilty, although, being Italian, you would know what that's like, right? So I'm still working on that part. But I felt like I was keeping a secret that shouldn't be kept. And to your point, the movie The Secret was, I remember a friend sending it to me and saying, I want you to watch this. And I had my own business at the time, and I was watching The Secret, and I became so obsessed with The Secret. I had it playing in my store. I had it at home. I had the book on tape. I had the video. I mean, you name it, I had The Secret. I was driving my daughter crazy. But there was something very fascinating about it, and it wasn't necessarily the content of the movie, but because it barely skims the surface, and I don't have to tell you that. It's that it ignited within me
Yes.
something that said, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. Do checks really just come in the mail? Things like that. And the truth of the matter is, they do. But there's a much deeper process, right? And
You
there's a
have to
blueprint.
do something.
That's right.
Right.
Yes, you do have to get up off the couch. There is a blueprint for life. There is a blueprint. I love how Mary said that.
Yeah.
When she talked about blueprint. We just did a health and wellness program at work, and they're calling it Blueprint for Wellness. So blueprint's been showing up everywhere
Right.
now. But this show, I hope to be part of their blueprint.
Yeah. Well, the interesting, I just want to finish my story with,
Did I interrupt you?
no, you did not.
I-
But I just thought later I never finished it. So when
So
the
then in
doctor
advance,
had
I'll
said,
apologize.
So when the doctor had said you'll go on heart medication, I just want you to know, through working with my thinking, I didn't get help from medication, through a therapist, through the doctor, through any of the traditional ways of somebody helping me get my body to work, to correspond the way I wanted it to work, because it wasn't working the way I wanted it to work. Because my life got very small. When your health is at that point fragile, when you don't know when anything's going to happen to show up, your life gets very small. I didn't go out much, and where I had a very dynamic life before. But it wasn't through any of those traditional channels. And I still had the same husband, the same kids, the same house, the same car. Everything was the same in my life from when I was not healthy to when I started to really open up and blossom and have my life change. I still have, my husband, we're married 26 years. I have my 3 kids. I have a different car now because,
It's about time.
yeah, I do have a different car now. The house is the same.
And you're going to keep John.
I'm going to keep John.
Okay,
And my
good.
family's the same. We just had a big birthday celebration. I love getting together with, I have 2 brothers and a sister and my parents, and it works. It works so wonderfully when you want it to work, when you've got a model for what it could possibly look like, and
Right.
someone to help you to navigate through what doesn't work and focus on what does work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And look, big Italian families they're entertaining. So, especially when you're on this journey, they create quite a source of laughter.
Yes.
A lot of emotion.
Yes.
A lot of passion.
A lot of learning.
Oh. So, let's see what time it is right now. It is 7:35, and we're going to open up the lines for callers, and we would like to invite callers to call in and share a little bit about something in regards to our topic tonight on, how you got where you are and the divine dialogue. Are you engaging in divine dialogue? The dial-in number is 845-353-2910. Again, that's 845-353-2910. We're going to continue our conversation on divine dialogue, and also we would like to let you know that some of our intentions for the show we are very clear on. There are other ideas that we're hoping we'll get from our viewers, and we'd like to hear from you and let us know what you'd like to hear and talk about. From time to time, we will have guests on our show from all of the fields, both spiritual leaders as well as personal growth contemporaries. And if there is someone specific that you would like to see on our show, or perhaps it's you, please join our website, visit our website at www.thisorbetter.com and click on the contact page, shoot us an email, and begin dialogue with us, and we'll see what we can do about getting your guest on, or perhaps getting you on yourself. In addition to supporting the community and doing what Teresa and I do, we would like to create a space for all of the people who are doing absolutely wonderful things in the world. There are a lot of nonprofit organizations, both small and big, very local, that could use a venue like this just to get the word out and let people know about the beautiful things that they're doing and how they're giving. And so if you or someone you know is a member of a nonprofit organization and you would like to be featured on this show, please, again, visit us at thisorbetter.com, email us the information, the contact person, and somewhere that we can get a hold of you, and Teresa or myself, one of us will be in touch. You can always feel comfortable emailing Teresa or myself. Just check us out at thisorbetter.com, and Teresa and I will answer. Or Teresa's Dynamic Evolution, you can also go directly to Dynamic Evolution and contact Teresa directly through her website. And so, did I think of everything at the moment?
Yes, for contacting us and
For contacting us.
yeah, there's so much good going on in the world, and I wish that were highlighted a whole lot more than all the bad that's going on in the world. Because when we put our attention on the good, we'll see more of it. I mean, we really do.
Right. Right, and you and I know that.
Yes.
That's really clear to us, right? Because we've been on this path and we've been conscious of this path. And so, part of what we're doing, part of the reason why we wanted to put this show together is because, not just because we wanted to sit here and play talk show host, but because we really wanted to have fun with this. And yes, we are creating the life that we wanted. Teresa and I love what we do. We're having fun doing this right now. I'm not half as nervous as I was in the beginning. But it's a great opportunity to be a part of building something that many people will benefit from. I've been a member of many nonprofit organizations. The effort and loyalty, pulling fundraisers off, especially when the holidays come, it's enormous.
Why don't you tell them a little bit about This or Better? How that came about.
How did This or Better come out?
And what it's doing in the world.
This or Better is actually, it was a mindset that I had to cultivate when, like you were going through some of your challenging times. I have been on a journey since I'm 15 years old, although at 15 I wasn't aware of it. About 8 years ago, I experienced some really rocky roads in my life. My daughter had just turned 17 at the time, and of course she was driving me crazy. One of us was going to kill each other. I had a business. I worked full-time in addition to that. I have always been very fortunate in that everything that I have started has always reached some level of success, but now it all came crumbling down. And so I found myself, one of my very good intending neighbors called the police and said that this woman needs to be in the hospital. And so I spent the weekend at a hospital. They were evaluating me for having a nervous breakdown. And the truth of the matter is, I was having a nervous breakdown. Life had just gotten to be too much. The loss was tremendous, and I didn't know how I was going to recover. And it wasn't the first time I'd been in that dark place before. And so I had just found myself so completely and utterly exhausted with life. And I just wanted to figure it out. So I can tell you that there were times when I felt myself on my knees with white knuckles screaming at God, why me? I truly felt very victimized. Now, I also come from, and this is not to complain or judge. My mother is an old-fashioned Italian Catholic. So my faith, my base and my faith has always been from a Catholic perspective. And so the reason I felt victimized is because I really didn't understand why God was answering my sister's prayers and not mine. I personally didn't see any difference, and I thought I did quite a number of good things. So part of the journey is uncovering and becoming, understanding more of my connection and my purpose, and I realized that. But it wasn't until I went to the hospital, and of course I had my BlackBerry at the time because I've always been in corporate America, right? So even in the midst of this mini breakdown, right, they want to take my phone, and I said, no, I have a conference call. So, I've always been able to somehow, even in the midst of all that chaos, compartmentalize and go, oh no, now I have to be in my corporate role here, so it's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, from a spiritual perspective. One minute I'm on, and the next minute, it was a rocky road. Mm-hmm. I can just tell you it was a rocky road. So having spent the weekend in this hospital and in a couple of counseling groups, of course I start counseling.
In the hospital?
Yeah, but I wasn't counseling, they weren't counseling me. I was in the group, and I was trying to go, what's wrong? What do you mean? And so this aha moment for me in the hospital was that, these people were from all walks of life. They were the corporate executives there. There was the housewife who was dealing with domestic abuse, domestic violence. There were teenagers who didn't want to live. There were the corporate executive who would have alcoholic outrages and outburst and just destroy everything in his life periodically and had no reason why or any recollection. And there were elderly people that were pushing 85 and who were just so depressed. And I watched for the weekend, and I watched what was going on, and something amazing was going on inside of me because I started to put the dots together and say, why would all of these people, what is the missing piece to the puzzle? They're all very different. They come from all different walks of life, and yet they're all suffering from this incredible sadness and this sense of uselessness. And I don't know if those are their words. I didn't interview each one of them. I was looking to get back to my meeting on Monday, so I kept telling the doctors, look, evaluate me because I have customers to see on Monday. Well, lo and behold, I saw my customers on Monday. But it was an experience that I will never forget, and I think I really, really feel blessed by that experience because when I witnessed all of the sadness showing up in it wasn't that misery loved company. It wasn't it at all. In fact, watching them all so sad and knowing my own sadness at the condition of my life, I developed, it was this or better. I was calling God out. This or better was really me in an argument with God. And I was telling God what I wanted. And I had no problem. I was very arrogant. I had no problem telling God, I want this, and I want this, or better. But I was calling him out. So if everything that God was, that God was saying was true, and everything that I was taught about God was true, then all right, this or better. So it then became something very supportive to me. It became a mantra. Right. It became an attitude. It became a mindset is really what it is. And then from there, I started to journal and put a lot of the stories about my experience as a single parent with a teenager, which is probably hands down my biggest piece of education.
Barry Morrissey would call it your biggest spiritual journey.
Yes. It's like the ice water in your face.
Yeah.
So Samantha is my daughter, and Samantha has truly been the greatest gift in my life, although she doesn't hear me say that very often. But through all of the challenging experiences, it was actually my desire to be able to answer some of my daughter's questions, and because I was having such a tough time being a mother to a teenager, I did not know how to handle how do you parent a teenager in today's world. In my day, in my parents' day, there was the wooden spoon, there was the Avon brush, and there was my father's belt. In this modern day, we don't have those options anymore. And I'm not the only one raising my child now. We have social media raising our children partially. So that's a very long story, but This or Better really became something that became my best friend. It was how I talked to myself. It's how I began conversation in defining what it was I wanted in my life. But I can tell you that truly my inspiration is my daughter. And now that I have my grandson, Anthony, it's truly a pleasure to look at him and know that he will truly have a wonderful experience in life, because both his mother and his grandmother are that much more the wiser now, having experienced everything we did together. If the universe played on fair ground, then she would have had a girl and she would have had to experience everything I did. But as it turned out, she got a boy, and I'm pleasantly pleased because I wanted a boy. So it is what it is, and we are both living a nice life. We live a nice life, and we're both aware that we're on a journey and we're trying. We have good days and bad days. In fact, Jamie Greenberg, who has been one of my mentors and coaches for a very long time, we wanted to put a camera in my house. And you want to talk about a reality show, then we're going to put a camera in the house and watch one woman on her spiritual journey with a 23-year-old single mother and a beautiful little 2-year-old named Anthony. And so, you will cry, you will laugh, you'll need a happy hour, you'll need a Xanax, you'll go through all of these things, and you'll find a way of enjoying the ride without any of the happy hour, without the Xanax. You'll just learn to actually love every one of those moments, good, bad, and indifferent. Right? So I think that's what it was for me. Could I live life without a happy hour and without a Xanax? And there was a point in my life before I went in the hospital when no. Happy hour was how I medicated to take myself or to numb myself, right? And a Xanax before a business meeting, or just a Xanax on a Saturday before I started making breakfast. I mean, when the little things start to become a challenge, it's a red light, and it's time to, let's take some stock. And
Right, so we're here to help people to see that light before it gets to be a 2x4 hitting them in the head, or having to get to the hospital, or whatever it is that looks like that end result. I mean, I think personally, if people really started experiencing themselves, experiencing life, working towards who they really are, what the gifts they've come to give, and be able to get out and use those gifts and really advocate for themselves of what they truly wanted to bring to the world, who they wanted to be in the world, there would be so much less alcohol abuse and drug abuse, and all the abuses, even the eating, food abuse, and whatever the abuse is. Give themselves permission to really ask them that question: what would you love? Really, what would you love in your life? And when you get to the end of your road, what is it that you will have wanted it to look like along the way?
Right.
And then find that support, whatever that looks like, to help them on that journey. People that have done it before them, to really work that out, find that path. So let's just give out the phone number one more time. It's 845-353-2910. 845-353-2910. If you have a question, you want to share an experience, really just tap into what's going on here, see if we can help you along the way on your journey, make it a little easier for you in the right direction. So you were talking about charities before and the good work people do. So out of This or Better came, you have a charity that
Right.
That
That's
you-
the ChooseACharity.net Foundation. Actually, no, the ChooseACharity.net Foundation came long before This or Better.
Oh, it did? Oh, I didn't know
Yes, and I'd been working with nonprofit organizations since my daughter was a baby. I started working and volunteering my time in local nonprofit organizations in my community, and then later that grew, and I started to do some bigger work for larger organizations. Friends of the Shelter, which is a non-for-profit organization in New Jersey, that is a nonprofit organization that caters to women and children of domestic abuse. So that is the first time I got completely entrenched and really did a lot of volunteering and so on. The ChooseACharity.net Foundation I established because I wanted to create a foundation that supported children and their families in America that are living at or below poverty levels. Now, I think it's important to say that although I was raised, I'm one of 9 children. Both my parents worked every day of their life, just about. If they weren't working in their jobs, they were working taking care of 9 kids
children.
and keeping up a house.
Yeah.
So we always had a warm bed. We always had food on the table. But there were many times when that food came from the church. And so it's sometimes a thankless job when you're working with these organizations and these food pantries. They do so much and get very little recognition for it. And I know that giving is not, people aren't always giving for the recognition, but it is truly, truly so inspiring and motivating when you are working with these organizations for people to know what you do, and just to hear their appreciation makes the next fundraiser so much less tiring. But I started to get a little burnt out in fundraising, and I had a store, and in my store I offered only items that supported a charity in some way. So all of the inventory in my store, each item benefited a particular charity. And I made it very specific to that. It was a wonderful idea. People loved it. The business was successful for about 3 years. 2008 came, and I made some decisions that didn't prove fruitful for my business, and it was time to go back to corporate America. But my intention was always to find an innovative way to support the local nonprofit organizations, and not in place of the tricky trays and the fundraisers, but in addition to, so that you don't tax your volunteers so much.
Right.
Because with every organization, I think it's fair to say, at least this is what my experience has been, that especially with the smaller organizations, 20% of the members do 80% of the work.
Absolutely.
And so, and then their volunteer efforts, they mean well, but life shows up for them. And so their volunteer efforts are just that, they're volunteer efforts. So it can be very inconsistent. So Choose a Charity was created because I wanted to put an online presence to charity, and I just wanted it. And now there are a lot of companies doing it, so it's no secret. I mean, the biggest big box retailers, that's a huge marketing campaign for them, that, Shop for Causes. Macy's does a fantastic job.
Right.
You were talking about that new program that they have. So I see online sales as a way of really ramping up fundraising efforts for all charities, for the small and the large. Large charities get government funded. This is the reason why I was partial to small organizations, was because the small organizations don't get the funding and the corporate sponsorship that the larger organizations do. And maybe because they have the personnel that has the skill set
Right.
to do that. But every large nonprofit was a small profit. They were small at one time.
Right.
Right? So what makes them different from the smaller? That they had a vision and they had a goal. So it goes right back to creating our own lives. And a large part of what we did with Choose a Charity was trying to get small mom and pop shops and communities to join this network of merchants. And for a short time, we did have about 17. This was a very local 2-week experiment that we did. And 17 merchants in a 2-week period participated in an in-store fundraiser that generated $22,000
Wow.
in 1 week. So, and that's 17. So it was, technically it was 2 weekends, but it was really only one full week in between. And it went to the local schools. We only had 3 high schools participating. 3 high schools were capable of raising $22,000 in one town in 2 weekends. And that was all through a get to know your merchant, meet your merchant, and shop where you see this logo, and 10% went. So Choose a Charity was designed to work just like that. And Choose a Charity is still very much, I'm redesigning Choose a Charity now, but the difference between the small nonprofits and the large nonprofits are very much like the small merchants and the big merchants. And that as long as the small merchants continue to think like small merchants, they'll never be big box retailers.
They could use some help.
Right. So I know that our venue is our venue is so diverse in that it's personal growth for the individual, for this business owner, the nonprofit organization, the spiritual organizations that are looking to get their word out. I'm excited about this show. And I know that we had a lot to talk about tonight, and we promise that each week to offer more inspiration and create some divine dialogue to carry you through the rest of the week, get you thinking, and we hope that you will join us each week at 7. Write into us, either Teresa at Dynamic Evolution or myself, Lisa Howard, at thisorbetter.com. Tell us what you think, what you'd like to hear, and if you or know you're someone or you yourself would like to be a guest on this show and share your experience and how you are contributing to the betterment of the world. This show is about solutions, and it's about what's going right. It's not a show about the news or any of the complaints that we can hear every day from a coworker or a neighbor. This show is about talking about what's going right with our life, what's working, and how we get to contribute to continuing that process.
And if you're really looking to uplevel your life, call us. We'll give you some divine dialogue.
That's right. And if you are interested in a workshop or personal coaching, please do contact either Teresa Winicky or myself. We conduct workshops each season throughout the year. We are in the Reach Fall 2013 series right now. We're on week 3. And we will be heading up a new workshop in January, Resolution Success. And that's going to prove to be quite an experience, Resolution Success. And if you would like to consider to be a member and participant in that workshop, we encourage you to sign up early. The seats are limited. We have spaces for 24 students at this time. So with that,
we have show number 1 in the bag.
So show number 1 is done. It was fun. So not bad for 2 novice talk show hosts. We'll get the hang of this.
Yes.
And what else? Can we stop the tape now?
We just say goodbye. We'll see you next week.
Oh.
Yeah.
See you next week, 7 o'clock on Rockland.
Worldradio.com.
And what's the name of the show?
Thank you for joining This or Better's Divine Dialogue. Teresa Winicky, Lisa Howard, we look forward to seeing you next week, or call us during the week. If anything comes up and you'd like to engage in conversation, please contact us. Dynamic Evolution or thisorbetter.com. Thank you and have a wonderful week.
Good night.
Good night.
It's not just radio, it's Rockland World Radio. RocklandWorldRadio.com.